and welcome to Be Kind Rewinder. I'm your host and deputy editor Lex Luddy, joined by our managing editor Scott McRae and two special guests this week. Hayes Madsen from Inverse and freelancing fame. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. And Alexandra Hobbs, who is deputy editor over at Jinx TV. How you doing?
That's right. I'm good. I'm in a really warm room right now, so I'm kind of boiling a little bit. So if you see me sweating, don't say anything.
I think every room is a warm room at the moment, like everywhere. It seems like everywhere's having a heat wave. Anyway, Rewinder is an independent publication here to talk about the games that we care about in a thoughtful way. On this episode, we'll be discussing Norman Reedus's Exceptional Fetus, Fragile, Not So Fragile, Fragile Shipping, and Hideo Kojima's Boktai, probably. But before all that, I very quickly want to thank Jerome, friend of the site, for doing this lovely new artwork that we have. You might be able to tell that it looks way more professional. He did a bunch of work to have like loads of layouts so that we can do Twitch streams that are 2 or 3 or however many people, standby screens, and also this. And it looks fantastic. You can't see it in the call right now, but trust me, you're in the best squares that you have ever seen. These squares look so good. I don't really have any banter this week, but we got you all here because you've been playing Death Stranding. What's that all about?
Excellent question. What is it about?
This is the first thing I want to say. My background with Death Stranding 1 is I got to Chapter 3, and I did a bit of Chapter 3 in that, which is kind of when that game opens up, and I fell off pretty hard, and then I kind of watched the rest of the cutscenes after that. And then I was like, oh, I've only had this game for about a day, so I've played about 5 hours of it, and I got to the beginning of Act 3, which is kind of when you leave the tutorial area, and when I first loaded up the game, I was like, oh, there's a recap. That's helpful. And this was one of those situations where living with other people is really awkward because my dad was in that room at the time. He had just made a phone call, and he was like, oh, what are you playing at the moment? I'll stick around and see what you're playing at the moment. I love being interested in your work. And I was like, okay, dude, sure. Let's load up this recap. And then there was 17 slides of recap that I have to say are exceptionally unhelpful. As someone that has, like, then went and watched a video recap, I think it was GameSpot's one, I think Tom over at GameSpot did one that was pretty good, that was like, here's all the things that happened. It leaves so much important shit out. Like, it doesn't mention that Bridget is, like, actually evil in the end and that she's trying to destroy the world. It doesn't mention Mads Mikkelsen even once. He's just not mentioned in it.
I mean, what do you need to know?
He's your dad! It's a big plot point! It's
also Mads Mikkelsen. Maybe you're dead.
I mean this in the least spoilery way possible. Don't fucking hold your breath. It did not matter at all.
You're better off, honestly, just watching like the last 2 hours of the first game because it painstakingly tells you every single plot point again.
So that's
in the last like 2 hours.
All this stuff that I forgot was like that stuff that happens at the very end because I just watched the YouTube video for that stuff. So that stuff like was very easy.
Mario and Princess Peach, and everyone clapped.
Yeah, but like I totally forgot about like the Han Ka stuff of her soul being split in two, and then one part of her soul being the president, and one part of her soul being evil, and
oh, don't worry, they'll remind you in this game.
Okay, good.
They do not fucking stop talking about the Ha and the Ka.
The Ha and the Ka. I still get it mixed up.
There's
which one am I now? What?
So,
okay, we're probably getting ahead of our skis. All three reviewed this game.
That's right.
Yes. And so briefly, can you tell me your score and your general feelings towards the franchise and your general feelings towards this game? Hayes, starting with you.
Yeah, so I reviewed it for Rolling Stone. They don't do scores there, so unscored review. But general feelings towards Death Stranding, I liked the first Death Stranding a lot, but only after I went back and replayed it about 4 or 5 months ago. Got like halfway through when it came out and bounced off, and then it really clicked for me this time. And Death Stranding 2, I kind of top view. I really like it. I do think it's one of Kojima's more like chaotic games, one of his messier written games, but in a way that works for me. I really enjoy kind of how messy and ambitious it is personally.
Scott, you also reviewed this, and you are one of the biggest Kojima marks I know. So tell me a
Oi,
little
for
bit about that.
liking good video games. Yeah, so I did my review for Tech Radar. I gave it a 5 out of 5. It came close to not being. It really came down to kind of like, as I was writing it, I was like, right, I don't know where I'm going to go with this. It could have been anywhere from a 4 to a 5, depending on where I was, because I was still by the end of it like, how do I feel about this? But in the end, I was like, nah. Like it took sitting down and actually thinking about what I had to say about it to be like, no, I actually really like this. The first game I played because it was the new Kojima joint, and it'd been like 5 years since he left Konami, so obviously I was going to play it. But that's a game kind of not quite in the same vein as Yuhei's, but I liked it at first. I finished it, but then every time I've thought about it or gone back to it in the last like 2 or 3 years, I've been like, oh shit, this game was, it was something real cool. And yeah, I get what you're saying about it being quite messy this time around. It is quite. I felt like this game did not really get going until like the very end at points. Like sometimes the actual story of the whole thing isn't really there, but
Which
then
is
at the end it is.
interesting because they make a point of getting you into the gameplay way quicker than the first game.
Hmm,
Like, you literally have, like, a kind of 45-second cutscene of some monologue, and then it's like, okay, now go walk to your home.
yeah,
When you compare that to the first game, which I replayed that opening again recently, checking out the director's cut, like, it's a solid 25 minutes of cutscene where you can
as it
just
should
move
be.
around the camera before you get to do anything, before you even know what like the mechanics of the game are.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that they that seems to be like the one bit of feedback they actually took on board was like, hey, people want to play the game.
Yeah, but then they could Kojima the fuck out of that third act. Like that is one of the most Kojima third acts I think I've ever played. Like going back to even Snatcher, you notice it very strongly that the guy loves to just do a third act that is nothing but exposition dumps for like maybe even an hour, upwards of an hour, and this is one of the most Kojima third acts I've ever played. But overall, yeah, it's real good. Not quite, Metal Gear Solid 3, but it's it's up there in the Kojimas, I think.
And Alex, how did you feel about the game?
Yeah, so I reviewed it for Jinx. I gave it a 9.5. Kind of similar sort of sentiments. I thought it was near perfect, but there was a couple of issues. I think some of the characters didn't quite land for me. Some of the I mean, I adored the visuals as a whole, but then how they presented some of the characters kind of fell a bit short for me. And I can't remember what else it was. Some of like the combat finishes as well, like when everything goes into slow motion. I was like, oh, you're just interrupting the flow every now and then. So those little things kind of held me back from like the full 10 out of 10. But I adored the first game when it came out. Like it clicked for me immediately. So my hopes coming into it was like, oh, I just hope it's going to be kind of similar to this, just maybe looks a bit better, maybe some upgraded. And to be honest, it landed for me on every front on that. So I loved it.
And I think something that like has been super interesting looking at the response to this critically, and it's probably down to the people who are reviewing this sequel and also expectations being known, is it's being received a lot better than the first game in a general sense. That first game is like what, an 82 on Metacritic or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one is now at like, I think it's like 92 on OpenCritic, which is
When I
ridiculous.
looked like kind of maybe like an hour or two after the embargo dropped, it had the same amount of mixed reviews as the last game had negative ones. There's
Yeah.
only like 2 or 3 mixed reviews overall, and for the most part, it was like the 8s to the 10s.
And I think a lot of that's down to when reviews get assigned. Yeah, it's now at a 90 on Metacritic. When reviews get assigned in this industry, editors usually commission people who have an interest in the previous game or a related game. So for the first game, it was people who really like Kojima shit. And then Death Stranding, in a lot of ways, is very different from Metal Gear. It's a very different, like, gameplay experience. Whereas this one, it was people who were being, commissioned or were being assigned it at their work. It was a lot of people who were like, no, I love the first game. And so I definitely think that over the coming weeks, as this gets out to, like, the general populace and we get past that early access phase, you are going to see a second sentiment to that. But, like, that happens with everything now with reviews.
Everyone kind of came into this one like, oh, it looks very combat heavy. People are, they're kind of caving to what people wanted last time. But I think the people who hated that last one are still going to hate this because it's really
totally agree.
Oh yeah,
that...
I watched Jeff Gersman talk about this, and he was like, "Nah, still can't do this. Fuck this shit."
Even the basic structure of the game is like almost exactly the same as the first one.
It's
you have that opening, and then you have long stretches of delivery, and then you have kind of like a big crazy story scene, and then you go back to delivery.
And that is something that I found pretty interesting, was a lot of these reviews, despite being like generally positive or generally overwhelmingly positive, a lot of them had different things that they were negative and positive on. So there were some people that were like, I love the story nailed it, and then there were other people who were like, the story was the one part that didn't catch me for the whole thing, and then there was people who were like, oh, they changed up the gameplay, and that's great, and other people who were like, the gameplay's the exact same. And I'm not sure if that's just people approaching playing the game in a different way, or what's happening there. What do you think?
They definitely changed the combat, but it's not like suddenly this is like Vanquish or something like that. It's still just Death Stranding at its core. The story, I understand why people are like that, because I think I used the line and it might have get cut, but the plot of this game is very thin, but the story is kind of huge because they spend a lot more time exploring the characters and their kind of internalized, grief and all that stuff. But there's not actually all that much going on from point to point, Like you get the occasional, here's a tar pit or here's Higgs to do something funny for like half an hour, but like for the most part, it is just kind of like, how's Sam feeling? He's not good.
Not great. Not doing well, bud.
Yeah. Until, like you said, you get till that last act, and then it's like everything happens in the last 4 hours.
It is interesting, watching bits of video come out after the embargo has dropped, and kind of like people can just upload any old clip now. There seems to be a lot of, I know, it's almost like RPG-ish party reminiscent of like just hanging out with your friends. You're just hanging out with guys and your friends, and you're just spending some time with Elle Fanning, or you're just spending some time with Rainey. Because the first 5 hours that I've played is pretty solitary, but like I kind of left off where I am joining the crew of the Magellan, and so I'm curious, does it really feel like you are part of a crew, and do those characters feel necessary? Because I kind of thought one of the things that really clicked for me in that original game was the feeling of isolation, and even just like the idea of having Dollman with me all the time. It's like, actually I kind of liked being alone.
But I loved Old Man.
Oh yeah, I love him as a character.
I was like, thank God he's with me. But no, I see what you're saying without the because even though it is now more of like I feel like a party feeling, it didn't feel like they were doing much outside of those here and a couple of cutscenes here and there. It's like, oh, if you're doing your cargo delivery and then you go back to the Magellan and it's like, oh, Rainey's here teaching tomorrow about how moles are born or whatever, and you're like, okay, cool, and then you kind of go off and do your own thing again. It didn't feel like they were with you the whole way through, but then they come back for these like special moments. So I still felt that kind of feeling of this is Sam going it alone in a weird way, but there's like some friends in the background if you need them. I don't know if anyone else kind of felt the same way or not, but
I mean, that's kind of the plot of the game, isn't it? Like Sam learning that he doesn't need to be a solitary like jackass to everyone. Sorry, Hayes, I'll let you continue off this point because I was going to go on a tangent about Doll Man.
Oh no, I completely agree, and I think that's actually one of the things I like is that feeling of, that isolation's still there when you're out doing the deliveries and kind of connecting people to the network. But I kind of like the feeling of this almost like second home that you have to come back to. It's like, once you connect somewhere that the Magellan's going to be there and everyone's going to be there and you get to see everyone again. And I think that's a really interesting way that the loop of this game feels a little more dynamic than the last one. Whereas, Death Stranding 1 was this very solitary journey the whole way through. You have these kind of like moments of reconnection with your friends. And to me, that was one of the parts that I enjoyed more about this sequel.
And so, something that, like, I'm trying to untangle with this game is how, because this was the thing that really took me out of the first one, was a lot of the times I was like, okay, Kojima, I get it, you have a lot of friends. Does it feel any more natural this time around?
I don't know if I'm just a pleb, because I honestly did not recognize like 90% of the people who were in this one.
Me neither. Yeah,
I
I was like, I don't know
recognize
who you are.
some of them are weird because some of them it's just like, here's the name of the celebrity, like Gen Hishino's in there. Someone very early on.
Churches have their real name.
Yeah, the artist.
Yeah.
Whoever the artist is, that's her real name. But Church, don't get me fucking started in Churches. I've been waiting to talk about this.
Yeah.
That is the worst Scottish accents I've heard in a game since the first boss of Metaphor.
I did wonder.
That is not them at all. Lauren from Churches has got kind of this a lot higher pitched voice, but all three. Well, I don't know if the third guy, the NFT guy, doesn't talk as far as I know, but Lauren and Ian, I want to say, both talk, and they both have Shrek accents. It's clearly not someone Scottish doing the voice. It's
I
like,
had to skip it. I was like, this sounds bad.
thank you for bringing this alligator to us. It's like proper honking Scottish accents.
I'm really surprised that he did let them keep their name and he didn't just name the two men Scotsman, because that would have been a good move.
I think
That's one of the things I've always found bizarre about those cameos is because you have all these people scanned in, but they don't do the voices, obviously.
And it makes
so
sense
even the
for
people
some of
you
them.
recognize, it's this uncanny experience.
It makes sense for like Guillermo del Toro because obviously he's not going to record all of his lines. Like, he's a busy man, he can't do all of that. But like when it's Jeff Keighley and then you get Matt Mercer to voice him, it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we?
And I want to say it's like Young Ye or something like that does the voice, and it completely took me out because I'm like, whoever this is meant to be. Oh no, it wasn't Young Ye. It was who's the other YouTuber voice actor? The guy
ZD.
Pro ZD. It was him, and it completely took me out because I'm like, this is not. I don't know who this person is, but that is not their voice. But for the most part, they'll kind of.
And it's like really weird to see like the legendary director of Ghost in the Shell with like an Australian accent, basically.
Yeah, there was a lot of that too.
And that's something we haven't talked about. This game doesn't take place in America like the first game. For the most part,
not at all.
The opening is you going down to Mexico.
No, you're in Mexico.
Yeah, you're in Mexico, and it's you connecting like Mexico to the chiral network, and then it's like, okay, we've done that. Time to go over to Australia through a plate gate, and you're connecting Australia. Does that actually change anything, or is it just like, here's a slightly different environment for you to work in? Is there any tangible difference in that?
I think it was just an excuse for Kojima to get George Miller in, right? Like, oh, Mad Max, loved it. Babe, loved it. Get him in Death Stranding. Let's go.
Yeah. Kojima, huge Babe Pig in the City fan.
Huge Pig in the City fan.
I feel like I'm pulling this out my ass here, so please do not quote me on it. I feel like the original story was unconnecting America, but then because of COVID they changed it or something like that. I feel like I read an interview, something like that. So it does feel just kind of like, oh, here's another big place to connect that is vaguely America shaped. But I mean, there's no landmarks in either game. You don't stumble across like the Golden Gate Bridge or
Sydney
like
Opera House or anything. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, you don't. The only difference is you find kangaroos, but
And a lot of Australian accents, of course.
Yeah. I'm curious because like this isn't a short game. most people who were reviewing it were like, I beelined it and it was 60 hours, or I'm 100 hours in.
I was like 40 and I
40?
did all the side missions. Not like I didn't do the you get like there's like 3 mission tiers. It's like the main missions, the sub missions, which are effectively here's a main mission that's not important to the story, and then there's the standard orders. I
Side
think they're
orders,
called.
they might be
Yeah.
called.
And I didn't do any of those, but I pretty much just did the story and the side missions, and it was just under 40 hours, I want to say.
And so, and I remember this was kind of part of the reason I dropped off the first game. Does it ever start to get a bit repetitive? Or do they
Maybe I think it's just,
have they
yeah.
found ways to make it to keep it interesting with the combat?
do-
Does the combat do enough?
Oh, the combat, no, the combat's kind of the same the whole game. I mean, you get rockets and all that later on, but that combat is that combat. It does the same thing as the first game, where you get like extra ways to move around in a way. But even then, it just depends on your tolerance. But that's the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about as much
Yeah.
as you're willing to put in and get you kind of get rewarded for that with certain upgrades and stuff. So if you know you'll keep doing supply runs for this one settlement, they upgrade their like star rating, and then eventually they'll give you maybe an upgrade for a weapon or an upgrade to your boots or something like that. That it's all very optional but kind of useful. So if you want to put in the time, you do get rewarded for it, but it is a lot of the same.
I feel like we're
I
kind
think
of
it,
we're damning with faint praise here. So I'm curious, like, what are the parts of the game that really click for each of you?
I think a big part of the appeal to me, as someone who like really enjoys that delivery experience, is kind of that building a network almost, because like here you can reconstruct monorails and you reconstruct roads and you set zip lines. And so I think across kind of that 60, 70 hour experience, I really like that experience of building a network of delivery where, somewhere you might have had to like trudge along for 40 minutes to make a delivery, suddenly you can use a catapult and a zip line and do it in 5 minutes. And so it's just that kind of that loop of creating your own little network that ties in with other people's networks as well. So just seeing that world kind of integrally change in the way that you move around it is really what clicks the most for me. On top of like, I did genuinely enjoy a lot of the storytelling, even as kind of scattershot as it is a lot. Those two aspects combined, that delivery and that story that kind of pulls you along, is really what nailed it for me.
Alex, what parts of the game really work for you then?
I would almost completely agree. I love the social strand aspects. I love building roads and I love transporting like tons of metal and ceramics to shove onto a road. Now I can just streamline myself and deliveries back and forwards. I don't know, something's incredibly satisfying about it to me. But yeah, also the story as well. Like same with the first one. There were all these moments where I was like, I don't really know where this is going, and I love that. I get so many games now. You're like, I know where this is going. I know what's going to happen here, or like this is the same story we've seen over and over again for decades. Whereas there's so many unique aspects to this game that I'm just like, you know what, this feels refreshing. It feels like I can happily commit my time to this story and still be surprised along the way, even like 40, 50 hours in. And that really does something for me.
Scott, you're the Kojima sicko. Why are you such a big fan?
So I tell you what, I'm in the exact same boat about the social stuff, and I liked building roads and I like building monorails, but for some reason with this game, I found myself just not using them. Like I would build them, I would like to contribute, but for some reason, I just felt like, you know what, I really want to walk over this hill, or I really want to do, like this weird path to go somewhere. Just like there was probably an element of it in the first game of if this wasn't Kojima, he wouldn't get away with it, of this being a traversal focused game. But since then, it's really become like kind of, I wouldn't say therapeutic because that is kind of stressful with how rough the traversal can be. But there is something kind of nice about just making your way about.
Like a flow
Um,
state to it.
yeah, story stuff, kind of the same. It's, it is a lot more resigned for Kojima standards for the most, but like I said, it's not very plot, or it isn't very plot heavy at first, so it isn't super overwhelming with cutscenes and all that. and then obviously it goes
And
full
there is
Kojima at
like
the end.
there is some nice quality of life stuff with that, where it's like when you pause a cutscene, it tells you how far through a cutscene you are, which seems like a real acknowledgement of like, listen, we know.
There's
And
one
also
bit
like
right at the end of the
the
game.
index as well, which is
Yeah,
pretty helpful.
There's one bit right at the end of the game. It's like, hey, do you want this big fucking lore dump, or do you want to just skip it? Can't remember how. I think it's like right at the end as well. But there's like one bit that's specifically just like, do you want me to tell you all this shit, or do you want to just get cliff notes? But then I was kind of in the same boat where I'm like, I want to see what happens next, but at the same time, so much of that story is incredibly obvious. Like there are things in that game where you're like, the second something happens, you're like, I bet this happens. And even then, when they do it, it's like they find a way to make it something really good. Like
I bet
there
I
is a
know what you're
character.
talking about, having
No,
discussed it in the
you're not.
pre-show.
You're not. It's not about that. It's about. Have you met Charlie yet? Charlie's
No,
meant to
the
be the
dummy,
secret.
right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
meant to be the secret figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're introduced to Charlie, you get the choice of, hey, do you want me to sound like someone you know? And the options are like 4 characters. One of them, I was like, there's no fucking way they got Margaret Qualley in the booth for the whole game, right? So I clicked her. It's weird. He didn't want to sound like Margaret Qualley for the whole
Weird.
game.
I wonder why.
And then one of the voice actors, another voice actor I really like, they were like, "Oh yeah, I'll talk like him the whole game, no worries." I mean, like it's
You can
but
only
then,
make one choice. It
yeah,
won't let you make any of the
Yeah.
it
others.
would not let you choose any of the other people. And then fucking when they do reveal who Charlie is, this is gonna be a big shocker, but that's probably my favorite scene in the game when they actually finally reveal who Charlie is.
It's very Severance-esque.
It's like right in the middle of like a different lore drop. Like there's a character who talks to you for a good like 20 minutes who does not show up for the last like 3 hours of that game. They just show up, talk to you for an hour, and then fuck off. But during that, there's a second lore drop about Charlie, and it keeps going. Like it does keep ramping up in ways, and then yeah, the finale is quite bombastic.
All of this sounds so Kojima that it's making me think maybe that first 5 hours that I played is very restrained. And like I wasn't thinking that like last night.
Until you get to like chapter 14 or so, that game is like that. It's very restrained, it's very chilled out, and then right at the end it's like fucking strap in, because same, it's like the same when Neil, the kind of solid snaky character, has been teasing the whole time. See, until like the last scene with him, you don't know a fucking thing about him. You get like tiny little clips of his life. It's kind of the same as Mads Mikkelsen in the first game, but until that last scene, you do not know a fucking thing about that dude. He just kind of shows up, does his thing.
Does have some really good boss battles though.
He looks hot as well. He looks really hot. That's
he's fucking phenomenal. Like that is the Game Awards for best performance. I am shocked if it goes to anyone but him. I thought he was actually like incredible in this.
He also seems like a level of actor who, compared to Norman Reedus, who whenever you see him talk about this is kind of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. He seems like someone who is like kind of mid-card enough that he actually gives a shit, and he's like, oh, this could be good for my career if I do this well.
I also think, not that I am the biggest Norman Reedus enjoyer, I also think this is the best performance that guy's done. Might be my favorite Troy Baker performance.
Troy Baker for sure,
man.
I could agree.
Yeah.
But interesting you say Reedus, because I feel like for 80% of the game he says nothing.
Yeah.
Until like kind of right at the end, and you're like, oh, he is here. He is in the booth.
That was something that I noticed in one of the cutscenes where something happens and you're like, I feel like he would be talking a lot more, but instead they've just animated him crying in silence. And I'm like, that's how they do the performance when they can't get all the lines.
I mean, there is a scene later in the game. They do that thing they did in Death Stranding 1 where you play as like almost a ghost and get to watch some events happen. And you watch him, and I'm like, turns out this guy who was on the bad TV show for 20 years is maybe a good actor. But I mean, yeah, a lot of his stuff is just him kind of going, like talking under his breath like that in an almost mumbly state, and you're like, Dollman, also really good. we kind of glossed over it. But I was in the same boat. I thought, that might kill the immersion and loneliness and all that. But I really liked having him around. It's a real good guy.
It's
Yeah.
Just love him.
it's
I
interesting.
think there's an interest. Go ahead.
I was just listening to something a little while ago where I think Grub was talking about it on Game S Mornings today about like how Sony kind of introduced the idea to all their studios are like, oh, you should always have a companion because that means that more people will complete the game if they're there to give you like a helping hand. And I'm curious if that's the edict that came down for Dollman, was like, no, you need to have like a Sony companion TM, and then Kojima was like, fuck it, fine, I will, but it's gonna be fucking weird. It's gonna be way weirder than Mimir. I'm gonna make Mimir look fucking normal by comparison.
That's what's really interesting, actually, because there is actually a narrative reason that Dollman is your companion. And I think once you find it out, you know, it is one of those things that's like fairly obvious, but you do get a moment where they tell you like, oh yeah, that's why we sent Dollman with you. And it adds like a nice little layer to his character and his relationship with Sam once you reach that moment.
The am I still coming through by the way? Because I've just
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
weird
yeah,
technical
yeah.
issue. Okay. They also Dollman gets one. I never got it till right at the end, but like every kind of character gets one of these like just like a big lore dump basically. You get one for Tarman, you find out how he lost his hand. You get one for Rainy and find out what hard deal is. Another character, loved Rainy. Don't know why, doesn't do much. Loved Rainy. Anyway, Dollman's one in particular is like
I've heard bits about this. It seems
he
very funny.
I wouldn't even say funny. It's like
It
obviously
seems very
this character
Kojima.
his ha being stuck in the ca of a doll is kind of stupid, but in other ways it's like, oh shit, this is like a very tragic character, and it kind of puts this whole thing into perspective, especially with that kind of big lore dump at the end of why they've sent Dollman with you. But yeah, I was very cynical, not very cynical, but you know what I mean. Like I was quite cynical about it at first because I'm like, oh, they want to do a Mimir. They've got Mimir in the game, who
Yes,
you
I
can hear
noticed his voice actor was in the game.
yeah, you can hear his Scottish accent slip through so much in that game. I don't know if it came through to the rest of you,
Is
but
it a spoiler to say who he is? Because I'm not sure who he is.
oh no, it's Alistair Duncan.
You
No,
yeah.
no, like what character he plays.
Oh, the president. He's
Yeah, you find out
Oh, okay.
way early on.
Okay,
he's been in the
He's
trailer.
the new
several times.
president of the UCA. Yeah.
Okay. The president of Jack Shit. The new president of Jack Shit.
So that's funny because it's the voice actor for Senator Armstrong, same voice actor right there.
Oh, that's great.
It's all coming together, even though Kojima didn't write that game.
Yeah, I
I
would have thought you'd be like,
no, this is
don't like that.
this is probably I hate to name drop, but I interviewed him like 3 years ago about Senator Armstrong specifically, and at one point during that conversation, he was like, "Oh, Kojima's a genius. Like he's so good. That Kojima, you know, he's so brilliant." And then I'm seeing he's in the game, and I'm like, he was fucking telling me that whole time, not properly telling me, but I was like, Kojima didn't write that game, but I wasn't gonna. But now I'm like, okay, so that's why this man was on your mind the whole time. I've lost where I was going with this. So
Yeah, so
Dollman good. Dollman good.
Dollman, excellent.
Dollman is
Love.
good. The other thing that hit me in the first 5 hours, and we talked a little bit about this before, one of the criticisms of the first game that came up a bunch was like, hey, Kojima's relationship with women, bit interesting. Kinda, he's got some things going on that he's maybe working through. This game, it seems to be that he has changed tact, and it's, hey, Kojima, dealing with some stuff about kids. Not quite, like, he's working through it. And I was saying to you, I am really not a fan of how much of that is, like, portrayed on screen. I think some of it is a bit fucking much. And I was actually like, I don't need to see this. I was like, I don't need to see this depicted in a digital format. It's fine if you just say that it happened off screen. I'm curious what your feelings on that was now that you have finished the game, and if they do make it pay off in the end or make it worthwhile.
So I didn't have as much of a problem with it. I found it quite bold. It was quite haunting. It was nice kind of having that almost a shock, but not like an egregious shock. It's kind of like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Like this is the theme, and this is where it's going. And it does come back around later on, with the later reveals, and you're kind of like, this is very much a story of grief, and not just restricted to Sam, but also all these other characters that are also going through a very similar kind of grief. But perhaps I don't think their particular grief is as shown as shockingly as that some of the opening stuff
So
you see.
there's
It's hard to talk about it without
Yeah.
actually talking
Yeah.
about it. But
and in both games there is kind of like it's a lot more in this one, but in both games there is like a kind of strong theme of like motherhood, and there's the whole BB program is from like brain dead women who have had their babies extracted from them. Like it's always been pretty grim. But in this game in particular, there's a specific NPC who you come across, and obviously Rainey is pregnant the whole time, but it's explained that she cannot have her baby because of the chiral network or whatever. Not the chiral network, but the stranding or something like that. And there's a lot of, I feel like it was handled a lot better, both in terms of his portrayal of women and like it was a lot sweeter about motherhood this time, because it was like those were kind of some of the more affecting moments of it, where you are talking to Rainey and she's talking about her child that she wants to have and all that. But I'm kind of in the same boat as Alex, where I did think it was quite bold. I thought it was rough.
I can imagine if you have a kid and you play the
Oh yeah,
beginning of this game, you're like, I'm not a fan of this. It was.
I
I know
It's
people.
definitely going to be different if you have a
Sure.
kid.
I know
For
people
sure.
who are like, hey, I didn't like it when there was the crying noise coming out of my controller. Like that triggered something
yeah,
in me. So I can imagine that if you have a kid,
I
there's stuff that will be pretty uncomfortable.
I am pretty bad with babies, as it turns out. I
In what way?
so
Explain.
so
He just thinks they're all ugly.
when
It's
it
weird.
comes,
He
Oh,
yeah,
fair.
brings
I
he
hate
brings it up all the time.
especially me. I was an ugly baby.
I can imagine.
Especially in horror, any baby-related horror scares the fucking life out of that scene in Resident Evil 8 where you go to the
Oh,
house, there's the big baby. I stopped playing for like a week after that. I walked out the cinema when a Razorhead was on. Like baby horror fucking terrifies me. So I do get I understand that kind of uncomfort with the crying, but that especially was I feel like I'm quite, I'm not the most sensitive, but I'm also not the toughest when it comes to stuff like that. Like stuff portrayed in games, but it was a rough watch, but also in my mind I'm like, I don't disagree with what he has done. I think it is it's a lot, but Kojima's whole thing has always been he wants to kind of push boundaries, because if that happened in a movie, you wouldn't really bat an eye. Sorry.
Oh yeah, like
Um,
I'm not annoyed
and
about
it's the
it
same with
because I'm super of the opinion that there has to be people who like cross the
yeah.
line of good taste to
Well, I
be able
think
to set a line of good taste. So like I'm fine
this
with
is
that.
a lot better than the Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero stuff,
Mhm.
which was fucking rough, but because there's almost an element of like anime-ness to the kind of Peace Walker characters. What happened to Paz and Ground Zeroes? It was like, you know, I don't think it was handled completely terribly, but I also think it was not handled well. And I think it being like an optional codec call thing that you can find out in the wild had a kind of griminess to it. Um, but that isn't to say that you don't push those boundaries. And I think he has done it a lot better with this game, considering the themes of it, than he did in
And it does seem
his
like
past
he
attempts.
is like taking some of those themes a bit more head on than he has in the past. I think Kojima can be really guilty of he sees a thing on Wikipedia, he goes down the rabbit hole and he's like, I'll include that. I'll include people who are scared of touch, and then he just never really like goes that far into like what that actually means or anything. Whereas like this game, even in those opening 5 hours, it like ruminates quite a bit on the couple of themes that it hits on early on, and it develops those more than he does tend to with some of his other ideas. Um, Before we finish up, this game, having played it now, do you feel like Kojima is still the game industry's great surprise? Do you think that he's still capable of surprising you, or I think a lot of this conversation has been like this game is very even keeled in some ways compared to what the trailers might have you believe. Um, do you think that that final big, ridiculousness at the end of exposition dump and story and everything, does that make up for it? Or do you think that this is a more reserved game than we've seen before?
I can go first
Yeah,
if you want.
yeah.
I think what I want to say yes, but with a caveat to your question. I think what impressed me the most about this game is kind of how closely it sticks to the vision of the original Death Stranding. And in a lot of ways, almost feels like kind of the more tangible realization of what he wanted the first game to be. And I think that's impressive because with most sequels, especially in the AAA space, I think we tend to see kind of a diluting of elements in a lot of ways to try and appeal to more people, to try and make it more approachable. And there is a degree of that here, but I do think, it sticks to that core vision of being this delivery simulator, this traversal simulator. The story is unabashedly, like I said, messy and chaotic and tries to be all of these different themes at once. This post-COVID reflection on connection and fear of losing connection. In some ways, an indictment of American imperialism. And so it's just this kind of fusion of elements that are pushed even further than in the first game that is really what has stuck with me the most. And I think that, in a way, it's almost like no one else would have been able to do this but Kojima. And it's not necessarily because he's the only one capable of it, but he's the only one that's been put in a position to be able to do this because he has this reputation
And he
as
has
an
the long
auteur.
leash. Yeah, he can
He
get.
has the long leash. He has the funding. So, he's not the only one that could do it in terms of skill, in terms of writing quality, in terms of whatever else, but he's the only one in a position at this moment in time in the industry to make a game like this. And I do respect that I with Death Stranding 2, it feels like he recognizes that he kind of recognizes the position that he's in. The
Does this game make you more or less interested in Kojima working on different IP for the next little while of working on OD and Viscent?
I would personally say much more interested.
Okay. Are you kind of like, I'm good for Death Stranding for a while? Do you think that they leave it in a place where you're like, yeah, we could go like 10 years without another one of these?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. But that being said, I do think there's potential. Like, we know they're making the movie. We
Yeah.
know they're making the anime series. I think there's a lot of potential to do more with this world that's not strictly a video game. So I think in that regard, yes, but another Death Stranding game, I don't yeah, I could go 10 years or honestly, if they never make another Death Stranding game again, I think I'd be okay with that.
Scott, your kind of ending feelings on things?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't need another one. I think I'd play it. I'd be. I mean, I know he said he has an idea for a third one, but he wouldn't make it,
Mm.
which I think is quite interesting. And I think that we do need to kind of get to the point where Kojima Productions is being allowed to make games that aren't, Kojima's.
That don't feel like they have to say directed by Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, but to kind of go back to what you'd asked, I think this is honestly, in many ways, Kojima is most safe. It is a risk to continue Death Stranding the way it was because of how certain people interacted with that first game and kind of hated it. But at the same time, like, this is the most kind of straight sequel I think Kojima's ever done. Like, Metal Gear Solid 2 was this big fucking,
Subversion.
yeah, subversion of it, and it was like almost a retelling of Metal Gear Solid 1 in a way, and it's kind of nuts looking back on that, and then looking at Death Stranding 2, where it isn't. It is in some ways sort of a retread, but not in the sense that it's not. It's more of a like Metal Gear 2 to Metal Gear Solid retread than it was a Metal Gear Solid 1 to Metal Gear Solid 2, where it uses the fact that it's retreading elements as an element. This is just kind of more of a straight sequel than I think we've seen him do possibly ever. But I mean, we'll kind of get into it later with some of the questions we got, but it, there's an element of, yes, he's the only one who gets funding, but I think for all the kind of, he's well beloved, but he also gets a lot of backlash, especially from kind of the journalism circle of like, it's the classic, oh, more people work in that game, like of course they do. And I think he gets most of the kind of, out of all the authors, I think he gets the most shit from everyone, which, I mean, aside from the bad ones, the David Cages of the world, but um, I think he gets a lot of flack sometimes for kind of what he does, but there is also no one making games like that, especially in the AAA space. I think the way GTA 6 is for people like that, or the way a new Rockstar game is for people where that's an event, that's a new Kojima game is for me. Like, even, like, I don't think Death Stranding 1 was in my top 5 of that year. Like, I do get the Kojima fanboy allegations all the time, and I sort of am. But it's, even if I not, like, Death Stranding 1, I wasn't in love with the first thing I said.
But you're just
But you
curious to see what he does next, kind of.
Yeah, even playing it, I'm like, this is something huge. This is like so different and interesting. It's the most interesting like AAA game we've had in however many fucking years. And it's only going to get more real as we go on. Because obviously the way things are going, things are getting more expensive, things are getting more safe. But Kojima uses that name to kind of, and I think the big breakup with Konami does a lot for it as well, because he was in that position to be like this fucking punished Kojima type thing. But then I also think it's going to be really interesting to see how Pheasant turns out, because obviously he said that he'd almost died of COVID, and at that point, that's when he decided, oh shit, I should go back to doing what people want to see me do. So I'm very interested to kind of see. I mean, OD is going to be weird anyway, so I'm sure he'll get out of the system then. But I'm very interested to see how subversive he gets with Pheasant, because obviously the whole doc of this game is, okay, I'm going to do what people want me to do. I think that's going to be the most.
And I don't think
interesting thing.
Kojima is ever going to do that. Like, if he's saying I'm gonna do what people want me to do, he is lying. He is like, I'm gonna fuck with people. That's what he's actually
Also,
saying.
He should cast John Cena in a game. That's my closing statement. I will pass it to Alex for
Yeah, sure. Okay.
a less John Cena filled analysis of the game.
Hell yeah. No, I agree completely with what Scott and Hayes have both said. Like, Kojima gets a lot of free reign, but it's what he chooses to do with that is what makes him unique, right? Everyone always asks, like, why do you love Kojima? Like, why does he get so much praise? And it's because he is doing something that is, he's not necessarily giving the same of what all these other AAA games are doing. He's trying to offer something unique, trying to offer something impactful, and there's a lot of merit to that with games these days. So I appreciate that he just doesn't always go for the safe route. I do think that Death Stranding 2 is perhaps the more accessible game, like compared to Death Stranding 1. I think because it is very much, this is a straight sequel and it is pretty much a straight shot. It's not got as much weirdness until you get to like that final act. It is safe in that regard, but it's still unique, if that makes any sort of sense. But yeah, put John Cena in it. Why not?
Yeah, totally. That's the big takeaway here is put John Cena in OD. I would love to see John Cena in a horror movie. That would be great.
A straight horror movie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna derail the podcast too much about this, but genuinely looking at the camera here, I think John Cena is one of the finest actors of this generation. I think his range is so underrated. I think Peacemaker is one of the fucking best TV shows I've seen in the last however many years. And it's John Cena's fault. At the very least,
do you think that's because he's never experienced a real human emotion and he's gotten really good at faking it?
At the very least, I think John Cena is the best comedic actor of this generation. His timing is impeccable. And you say that, have you seen the videos of John Cena when he's getting like heckled by people? Like people are following around and filming him. It's the fucking wildest shit on the planet. Like there was a video that came the other day, someone was filming him and he like told them off basically, but he was so calm and he was getting crowded by all these people, and the way he did it, And there is like that man must be fucking wild inside. Like the stuff that he does, the amount of make-a-wishes he's done, that man must be an emotional fucking wreck inside. But he keeps it so chill. But yeah, I mean, I forgot what we were talking about. I just
It
wanted
was
to talk
Death
about John
Stranding
Cena
2,
being...
yeah, weirdly enough.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
again, we're going to talk about this more in the questions, but Alex just reminded me. The other thing about Kojima is for as much shit as he gets for his 20-hour long cutscenes and all that, he still cares about gameplay so much. Like he does stuff to further gameplay. He works with the medium. It's not like The Last of Us
The dude loves
can be a TV
CQC.
show.
We know that about him.
We've seen The Last of Us as a TV show. It works as a TV show, but like, I mean, Naughty Dog is probably a bad example because The Last of Us 2 is a very good game in terms of gameplay and the progression they did with the stealth from that. But the way, for as much as his cutscenes get talked about, he always tries to further what you can do in gameplay, and I think that is kind of what makes it stand out as well. But yeah, cast John Cena and Pheasant, please.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to quickly touch on just one or two other games. Scott, you said that you've been playing Hitman. Is that on Switch too? Have you been playing that port?
Yeah, I'm going to write more about this, so I don't really want to cannibalize it. But that is the perfect way to play Hitman if you forget that Hitman has so many problems. Hitman the game, brilliant, 10 out of 10, magical. Hitman the live service, fucking stupid. That game, the idea of playing Hitman on a handheld is so perfect. It's the most beautiful thing in the planet. I love it. I love playing it in bed. And then you take it outside and it's like, oh wait, you don't get any of your fucking saves because you're not online. I probably shouldn't put that down here because I am going to cannibalize my own writing. But
That
yes,
wouldn't be the first time we've done that on this podcast.
that is my takeaway from Hitman. I think that game is beautiful and I think it's very good in the Switch.
Performance okay? I heard it's a little bit
fine.
okay.
I haven't seen the problems. I've been getting crashes though a lot, and I don't know if it's something to do with my SD card because I got one crash on Yakuza and that's the only other game I've got in there, or if it's just something to do with Hitman. But I have had so many crashes. I've got a save currently. Like I played that, whatever the DLC island was for Hitman 3. I never played it before.
Oh yeah, the one
I
where
looked
you
at
kill all the
freelance it.
millionaires. That's a great level.
No, that's El Segal. It's
Oh, the
Ambrosia
Holiday
Island.
Island. Yeah, the Holiday.
No, not that one. The other one.
How many
Ambrose
fucking
Island, I think it's
islands
called.
did they go to?
So it's like a Hitman 3 DLC, but it takes place during Hitman 2. It's fucking weird. Anyway, I was playing that and it crashed on me, and every time I try and load that save, the game crashes on me. So I feel like that's probably a Hitman 2 problem, or a Hitman problem more than on my SD card, but I don't know.
My experience with Hitman is always the exact same nowadays, where I'm like, I should go back and play and like finish all the Hitman games, and then I load it up and I play a bit of Paris, and I'm like, man, this is still the best level. This is still the best one.
Paris fucking rules. And I still haven't played that Le Chiffre.
It's good. I watch the Next Lander folks play it, and it's fun.
Paris.
Yeah.
Colorado is overhated. That is my closing statement.
Yeah. The things that I've been playing, I've been going down a Mega 10 rabbit hole. I reviewed Rhino Remastered for the website, a game which I think is like a okay product. I think it's a great remaster. I think the way that they approach the remaster is really clever. And I wrote about it in my review and compared it to the Gus Van Sant Psycho remake, which is like a shot-for-shot remake, but feels totally different. In that case, it's really fucking bad, because Vince Vaughn is like not good in that movie.
I was saying, is that the one with Vince Vaughn? And
yeah,
I'm like, oh my god, yeah.
But in this case, it kind of works because they like put so much effort into recreating everything from the ground up in a very PS2 way, with these slight changes that do make it feel way better. I think the only part of it that I don't like is that they have brightened the game considerably. It's lost a lot of its grime, which is something that I think is super important to the Devil Summoner games. But that sent me down a rabbit hole of playing other SMT spin-offs. Yeah, Scott?
That's that Dead Rising remake you're explaining. Because
Yeah.
that is that game's bones, but with a prettier Vince Vaughn in it. I do find that weird that that's something you don't see with movies or any other media. No one remakes something exactly except Taylor Swift, I guess. But like,
Except Gus Van Sant did it, and everyone
yeah,
was like,
and
"Let's never do
Michael.
that again. Let's
I
never do."
mean, the weirdest one is a terrible. I can't remember how he pronounces his name, but Michael Haneke, who did Funny Games and then remade Funny Games, the
Yeah.
exact like shot for shot remake with just American actors. Like, that's such a weird game thing. It's almost like when Kanye West patched his albums. It's like it's weird when you really think about the games do that. It's the only thing
That we
that
don't
kind
just re-release them. Yeah.
yeah.
I that sent me down this rabbit hole, and so I've played Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and I've told this story in a few places. Don't play Tokyo Mirage Sessions in public. Don't.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Don't. I was on a plane, and there was a woman sitting next to me and a man on the other side of me. I was in the middle seat, and I was like, I played a bit of this first dungeon. I'm gonna go finish up the dungeon. I had just finished up the dungeon, and then they introduce the woman character who, like, gives you all your missions, which is really weird because they're like, this old bitch, she's 40. And they're constantly talking about how old she is, and I'm like, okay, settle down. But that woman walks on screen, and boy, her boobs come into frame, and she stops walking, and they just go left, right, left, right, left, right.
On the
And then
on the Xenoblade scale, where does it sit? On the Xenoblade 2 scale, sorry.
it's
where does it
actually
sit?
way worse.
The Xenoblade 2.
And the camera very much focuses in.
Yes.
On it too.
Also, all of these characters, other than that 40-year-old woman, are like in school, which is very
15,
uncomfortable.
16.
Yeah. And so I was just
when
like,
has that ever stopped Atlas?
yeah, I was playing
Yeah.
it, and then I was like, well, I guess I'm playing Tetris for the rest of this flight, so I closed and played Tetris, and that's what I did for the rest of the plane flight. But that got me wanting to check out some of the other ones. So I've gone back to Persona 5 Strikers, which I haven't played since it came out, and I think I've just become more tolerant to Muso bullshit. Because I'm like, yeah, I can kind of get what this game is going for. That game isn't, like, fantastic or anything, but, like, I like the summer vibes, I like the mood and the feel. I will say that it was a big mistake to load it up on my PS5 later to see where I left off there, because I bought it on the Switch just to, like, play the Switch version while I was traveling, because it was on sale for, like, $15 or something. I was like, sure. I loaded up on the PS5 to see where I was at, and I was like, how does this thing run on a PS5? Instantly flashbanged by my dead name, and I was like, oh no, I played this quite a long time ago. This game came out in 2020 or 2019? Maybe 2019.
2021. I know that because when I started playing this game, I got put on the antidepressants, and then I had a bad couple of weeks and had to come back to that game and forgot everything that happened.
God, yeah.
The Persona spin-off games are slowly pushing me to being, actually, maybe I agree with those people who want Persona 6 to be about adults, because every time one of those spin-offs comes out, I'm like, I like the old man character.
Strikers has probably my favorite party member in the entire series.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
The guy who's Wolf.
Zenkichi? Is that it?
Zenkichi, that's it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, is that the guy? Who's the guy from Tactica?
The Tactica, they introduced another girl who they then forget about.
It's the old guy though. It's the
Tactica?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I've known.
It's the girl and the old guy. They join your the old guy joins your party right at the end.
Akechi?
No.
He's in the DLC. Anyway, I have no idea. Then I went back and I played a bit of the PS or the 3DS port of the original Devil Summoner. And that game's got grime. That game is fucking grimy. It's also like an Etrian Odyssey in terms of combat. Like, it's first-person dungeon exploring, and I want to go back and finish it. And then I played Soul Hackers 2, which is a really funny game to load up. And it's the same with Rider Remaster, because both of these games load up and they have a made in Unity splash screen. And I know how much it costs to get rid of that splash screen. Atlas can afford to get rid of that splash screen. It's really funny that they load up and the first thing you see is made in Unity. That game looks really nice for a Unity game as well. And I think I'm enjoying that combat a lot more than I did the first time.
Because I'm pretty sure the new Monkey Ball games are all in Unity, and I want to say that something RGG did was in Unity as
Well,
well.
RGG did the Monkey Ball game, so
No, but I mean
yeah.
like something else they did that was not the
No,
Monkey.
they did
Because Monkey Ball's
Ishin
their
in
best games.
Unreal because they wanted to test out
Oh
the
yeah,
Unreal
so they did.
Engine.
So they did.
And Soul Hackers 2, that dungeon design's pretty. People are right. You go back and you look at reviews, and they're like, "These dungeons are pretty boring." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I like the kind of grind of RPGs. I enjoy just kind of mindlessly doing this. They all look the exact fucking same. It's just like, and they don't even like pick interesting areas. They're just like, hey, you're in a shipping like yard. It's like, awesome. This is what I want to be doing in a role playing game, is wandering through a shipping yard. And doing that 4 or 5 times for different side quests. And that has all led me to Persona 5 The Phantom X came out at like 3 a.m. last night, and I started playing it, and I got to the point where it was like, okay, time to name your character. I was like, do I call him Charlie Tanoku? And I haven't yet, but maybe I will. So I want to see what that game is like and what the gacha elements are like. Hayes, I know you played a bunch of that at a preview event.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's very heavily story based for a mobile game, and it's literally like 2 to 2.5 hours of story before you get to like any of the real gameplay,
And Persona?
which is
Yeah.
wild for a mobile game, though. I haven't gotten to properly test out the gotcha elements though, because when I went to the preview, they very much were like, "No, you can't access the store or buy anything." So I've only been able to play the story and like the city exploration, and I'm interested in it. It's like very much like Persona 5 2.0 almost but it seems to be in an interesting way where they're like actually playing with the story of Persona 5 as a feature of this game. So I want to see more.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because I've never been able to get on board with any gacha for the exact reason of feeling like, hey, I feel like they're trying to get me in here. That like,
Yeah.
even if I'm enjoying the gameplay, I feel like they are trying to lure me in, and I never feel good engaging with that. So if it is as story heavy as people kind of say it is, will I be able to ignore that? I'm not sure. But I want to give it a shot at least. I want to give it
I
like
don't
a.
know if this is an
Yeah.
old man take, but I think gacha games are bad by default. I just what
I
is the
agree.
point if I can't? There's no, even if it's something that seems very high budget and well thought out as this Persona game. Why would I waste my time when I know for a fact that I am not going to spend enough money to see everything in this? Not that I would, not that I play stuff to see everything in it. What I mean? Just that
Yeah,
barrier
it creates a negative feeling in your head that makes it
immediately
very
puts me
easy
off.
to dismiss.
Anyway, sorry, Hayes, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
Oh, my aside is just that the mascot character in that the little owl, is infinitely less annoying than Morgana. So that is at
Also,
least the one benefit, is that
I
he's
got
actually cool and Morgana sucks.
it's really wild that they chose an owl as their mascot character, because it's also an owl in Soul Hackers 2, which like people forget, like
but no one played that.
yeah, but you know, they tend to be good about changing those characters up, and it's weird that they repeated them that closely. Has anyone been playing
Yeah.
anything else, or are we good to move on to the news?
What's the animal in Persona 6 going to be? Go.
Dog. No, they already did dog.
I'm gonna say a beaver.
Angry monkey.
Oh, I tell you what, that'd be fucking. Get John Cena to play him.
Great.
That'd be
Let's go with it.
Yeah, that's my answer. Not even an anger monk, like just photorealistic, like PNG of a chimp. Just put that in there.
I mean, that's what most of their characters are anyway, are just PNGs.
Well, we have.
Have you played Persona 3 Portable?
Well, we have a Persona companion who is not a sexual harasser, and that's the next question.
I really hope that
cat and that bear they're not right.
I gotta say, they have gotten way better in stuff like Persona 5 Tactica, which I assume that is the team. Because Atlas is like 3 teams. It is Studio Zero, who spent ages working on Metaphor. It's the folks who kind of like work on remasters and remakes and weird shit. And then there's the Persona Studio, and the Persona Studio has been like quiet for a while. I really hope that they get the writers from Persona 5 Tactica to write 6, because that game has so much better writing than the main game, and is like actually progressive in a way that the main game only wants to like use the imagery of progressivism in their stuff. I hope they're better about that stuff. Oh god, I just hope none of the companions are a cop again. I really hope they're not a cop.
What are we gonna do when Persona 6, like Atlas are gonna do a big teaser, a big announcement? It's all green. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's Persona 6 time!" And they announce Catherine too.
Oh,
Is
that would
everyone
be
gonna be?
so good.
Everyone gonna
I'm
be
on board.
happy?
Yeah.
I love a Catherine too. I bought the Switch one for like cheap there, so I'm going to probably replay. I never played the updated Catherine with, was it Catherine?
Yeah, they were like, here it comes, a third Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
A third Catherine has hit the polycule. So we're gonna, speaking of angry apes, Donkey Kong Bonanza got a trailer. Scott, you put this in the news segment as
Read it out. Read it out.
I'm going to. Donkey Kong Bonanza looks fucking sick by Scott McCrae at This Doc. I think you mean in this doc. And the whole article reads, "Just look at the fucking thing."
Just look at the fucking.
No notes.
Yeah.
Did
I
you
mean,
see that shit?
it does look pretty joyous and fun. I heard like rumors coming out of SGF of people who played it being like, I don't think, some people are saying it's not that good, and I'm like, actually, I think the people who were saying that are just people who really like Donkey Kong Country, and so they should not be trusted. They should not be trusted because Donkey Kong Country is a bad game.
Right, let's get this rant out of the way now. Like, we're how many episodes in? 15 or something. You have the single worst taste in platformers of anyone I ever know, and it always gets me. It's like a sleeper agent activation. Anytime you talk about any fucking platformer,
Yoshi's Island is bad, and so is Donkey Kong
Yoshi's Island
Country.
is fine. It's not amazing.
Great
It's like
soundtrack though.
Donkey Kong Country 2 is fucking peak. Donkey Kong Country 1, really good. Donkey Kong Country 3, that baby is kind of weird, but it's better than people give it credit for. And then Tropical Freeze is also fucking peak. But also Super Mario Sunshine fucking rules. So Sean.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus.
Super Mario Sunshine is so good.
I'm a Sunshine sicko, so I'm right there.
There is.
I never had a GameCube, so sorry.
There is
You're
like
better
two
off.
games,
It's a bad console.
There are 2 games in existence that have better movement in Sunshine, and it's Super Mario Odyssey, and it's probably something else. I don't know. I didn't think this through. I keep that thing on me. I keep strapped at all times.
I bought
But
that
yes.
GameCube controller for the Switch 2, and when it arrived with my Switch 2, I was like, I just realized I don't like any GameCube games. Like, there's no games that I want to play that are better with a GameCube controller. Like, I can play Wind Waker in plenty of other ways.
The GameCube is Nintendo's perhaps peak when it comes to just doing weird shit. Like, if you really deep the GameCube and look at it, launched with a Luigi game, the Mario game's about fucking cleaning up puddles. They did a Wario 3D brawler made by fucking Treasure of all people. Wind Waker's weird, Double Dash is weird, fucking all that other like they got weird with it in the GameCube, and that's kind of where I'm
Going back to Donkey Kong Bonanza,
anyway.
I found out this week that there are people who don't like the new Donkey Kong redesign. And let me just say, on camera, being recorded, you motherfuckers are stupid. That is an incredible redesign. That character has never looked better. You are assholes. You're the same motherfuckers who are out there giving out about Wind Waker's art design. You were wrong then, and you are wrong now. Get fucked. Anyway,
he looks
Scott.
pretty bad in Mario Kart. I will say.
That's
the model in Mario Kart is not great, but yes, he looks fucking peak in Bonanza. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to go off about Bonanza. Like, I'm a Donkey Kong sicko. The rumor from like 15 years ago that the Odyssey team were doing Donkey Kong, that was my like number one thing for years.
That was your
my,
Moby
like,
Dick.
This is the game this is going to get announced. This direct. See, when I saw Kirby in the Forgotten Land announced, I saw some grass. Kirby in the Forgotten Land disappointed the fuck out of me. That game ruled. I loved it, but just because I saw that grass, I was like, "Holy fucking shit! It's time. It's Donkey Kong." And then when they showed it, and Donkey Kong is a fucking beast in the way that he has not been since Jungle Beat, I was like, "Oh my god, this looks like fucking perfect!" Like that.
But Scott, it conflicts with the lore of Donkey Kong.
trailer.
I have a
That first
question.
trailer had me sold. Yes.
Because I didn't realize you were such a Donkey Kong fanatic. But I've recently been enlightened to the Donkey Kong family and how
yeah.
extensive it is.
Mhm.
So like,
Yeah.
Do you know
there's like,
Do you know about the Crimean War?
and how it relates to the Kongs.
boy.
Okay, so
No, you're
brothers-
thinking of the real war.
Oh, I was gonna say
Well,
what?
Yeah, not the Crimean War. The
Oh,
Crimean
I was gonna
War,
say. Oh, my
which is
mistake.
a real war that took place in Donkey Kong lore. The brothers Bear talk about it in Donkey Kong Country 3. Yeah, no, the
It's
Kong family
no
is pretty
wonder
extensive.
that Nintendo stopped working with English studios, because they started writing backstories like this for their games when they weren't looking, and then they were like, "Oh fuck, lads, what did we do?"
Hang on.
The Kong family tree is getting confusing because they cannot decide on the basics of, is Cranky Kong his dad or is Cranky Kong his granddad? Originally it was Cranky Kong, DK Jr., the new guy. Now it's apparently Cranky Kong's dad. Anyway, they can't get that shit straight. Lanky Kong exists. That
Donkey
kinda-
Kong is always
Yeah,
always
Donkey
the
Kong.
the best.
Funky Kong
Single
is the
Kong.
one, like, additional Kong outside of the base, like, Kongs that I'm like, yeah, this is a good addition. All the other ones I'm like, you're just
Cranky
trying
a
too
base
hard.
Kong in your eyes?
Cranky,
Are you counting Cranky? Because
yes,
he gets
but
precedence over.
yeah, Cranky
the
Kong's
Funky.
okay. I don't mind Cranky Kong.
So anyway,
yeah, that
looked
game looks
amazing.
good.
This game was going to be my, like, when I saw it, I was like, I'm going to be shocked if anything else beats this year for me. And then we saw the direct where they just blew it even like more the fuck out, and you got like Donkey Kong's got a devil trigger and shit like that, and the movement and just everything about it. It looks like the nicest platformer. Fucking Astrobot. That's like that looks like a good ass platform. It looks like some good ass movement, and you're gonna fucking hate it because it's a good platformer.
I love Astrobot. Astrobot is one of my favorite games.
No, I'm talking about Donkey Kong because
Oh.
you hate good platformers.
Oh, yep.
Also,
Listen, okay. Other news stories. This is the surprise news story I warned you about before we went live. Amico releases some of its games on Switch and Steam, insists a console is still coming. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. The company behind the much-delayed Amico console has released some of its games on Nintendo Switch and Steam, while insisting the plan is still to release the console eventually. Originally announced in May 2018, the Amico system, which focuses on cheap family-friendly games, was originally due to launch... Okay, actually, when do you think the Amico was originally due to launch? Guess.
So it was announced in 2018, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I don't know, 2019? Like, maybe the year after? I don't know.
2020.
Oh,
And they
okay.
still haven't gotten it out.
Been a while.
The company...
Wonder what happened in 2020.
Who could say? The company even started selling 8 of its boxed games in October 2021, despite the console not yet having a release date, which, like... What? You can buy Amico games? You can own an Amico game, even though the Amico isn't out? In November 2023, Intellivision said it no longer had the funds needed to produce consoles, and so it launched Amico Home, a mobile app allowing iOS and Android users to buy the games that were originally planned for release on the Amico console. Last year, the company sold the Intellivision brand to Atari, renaming itself Amico Entertainment, because, yeah, it was the Intellivision brand that was bringing them down. We all know this. Atari would receive the Intellivision brand and software library, but the Amico console was not part of the deal. Now, Amico has announced that it still plans to release the console, but in the meantime, it has released 2 of its games on PC and 3 on Switch.
Are either of them, or any of them, sorry, that Earthworm Jim exclusive that we've all been
Fuck
waiting
no,
on for?
that thing is never coming out. That the dude who created it is too busy being a bigot online, so, you know, he's way too busy to actually make that game.
Groovy!
Stunt jumping, Evil Knievel, or a stunt jumping game, Evil Knievel, and platformer Finnegan Fox are available on Steam.
Oh,
and
shit, they got Finnegan Fox?
Yeah, they got Finnegan Fox. Are available on Steam and the eShop, while the motion-controlled sports game Cornhole is available on Switch, also for $15.
Oh.
So I guess the question is, Scott, when are we doing our cornhole live stream?
I'm fucking buying that shit right now.
Downloading
Yeah,
immediately.
are you buying cornhole
Oh,
right
shit,
now?
Sit with Barry. I cannot buy cornhole.
Yeah.
That's the worst news of my life.
This is wild and it's never happening. Anyway, that's kind of all there is to that news story. Is that console's never coming out? And
I like the controller.
you the controller's just your
10
phone, dude.
$10.99 for cornhole. That's a fucking bargain, bro.
$10.99.
That's
$10.99.
$15. So
That's more than welcome to her.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's when you think about it.
You're getting at least 2 countries from what I can see. You can go to Brazil, you can go to the city park, you can do it on the beach.
You know what they
you-
say? Brazil, huge cornhole country. They love cornhole
course,
over
like,
in Brazil.
You've got a dolphin, 4 players who can all cornhole at the same time. And the cornhole
That
masters
sounds illegal. So yeah, that
Who's
was the
cornhole
biggest
hole?
news that broke today, I think. The biggest news that broke last Friday was Nintendo has fixed its London Underground ad, which claimed Metroid Prime 4 was, quote, out now. This comes from Chris Scullion at VGC. Chris getting a lot of play on this episode. Nintendo has replaced a London Underground ad for Metroid Prime 4 days after it was found to have contained wrong information. On Friday, it was discovered that the poster for Metroid Prime 4, spotted by VGC at Oxford Circus Tube Station in London, gives information on the game along with an out now message. VGC took a picture of the poster, but also noted that the similar Mario Kart World poster alongside featured the same out now message. By the looks of it, this was like a mistake when they were copying and pasting the layers of a Photoshop thing, because you can see that in the original version it looks like there's another thing underneath the out now bit, and on the new version that thing that was probably underneath it is clearly just a thing that says 2025. And the question that I have around this is, do you think that this was a fuck up on the part of, hey, we just accidentally forgot to delete it, or was there any chance that at some point Nintendo was planning on releasing Metroid Prime 4 alongside the Switch 2?
I reckon it was just like an asset problem, right? I reckon someone was just like made to do
Yeah,
the
I think
graphics
so.
and they were like, oh, we've got this one, just use this as a template, and then forgot that actually, oh, the release dates aren't really the same.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
And someone who likely just didn't even know, honestly.
Uh,
They just print out the ads and they're like, they don't know what the fuck Metroid Prime 4 is.
When that game was not announced for launch and did not get a date in the Switch 2 Direct, that was the most September-ass game I think I've ever... Because they've got 2 months free. They've got 3 months free, sorry. They haven't got anything in September. They've not got anything in November or December.
And they have Drag X
based-
Drive in August.
Yeah, based on what they've shown, Metroid's got the most gameplay, so that's probably September. Kirby's got fuck all, so that's probably December, and then whatever the new Zelda Warriors is called. I don't think that was ever coming out at launch, though.
Is it weird that they still haven't announced a release date for Metroid Prime 4? Like, it feels like they should have. It feels like they have had so
I
many
think so.
opportunities, and, like, is this just going to be uploaded to the Nintendo Today app at some point? Are they that fucking all in on Nintendo Today that's where they post it?
Direct. Like, they'll do a direct in like 2 weeks or something like that, and it'll be okay. I think that's the game you announce once you've got past launch, because if it was any other year, then sure, but okay, you've got Mario Kart coming in June, that's what you want to focus on. Bonanza's coming right after, so we have something to kind of build off of. And then after that, Metroid is the game, you know? So I feel like it's more just let's not take the thunder away from, and not that releasing a date would, but you know what I mean? Like, let's not take the attention away from the 2 games that do have dates. And then the Pokemon Company just kind of does their own thing, so I don't think that was really a Nintendo.
It does
Toy
kind
Store
of...
deal when that comes out.
It does kind of add to the long ongoing saga of, hey, maybe Nintendo of Japan doesn't really care about Metroid. Maybe it's not their top priority to get eyeballs on Metroid. The fact that, like, they've shown relatively so little and they've been so calm when they have shown it. They're not, like, making a big deal out of it in a lot of ways, despite this game having been in development for so long. So I'm curious to see what happens with it. Sega leaked sales figures. Sale figures show Sonic's New Frontier is heading in the right direction. This comes from Ed Nightingale at Eurogamer. Over the weekend, Sega accidentally leaked sales figures for a number of key franchises, revealing, among others, the sales figures for its open zone game, Sonic Frontiers. Is Death Stranding an open zone game? Think about that. The numbers were accidentally included in the company's latest financial report and have since been swiftly removed, but not before fans shared them on Reset Era. Just to read some of these out, the ones that were included: Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth has sold 1.6 since launch. Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name has sold 960,000 since launch. Persona 3 Reload has sold 2 million. Sonic Superstars sold 2.4 million, which is that's so much for such a bad game.
That's the only one that surprises me out of this list.
I'm shocked Persona 3 Reload did well as it did.
People love Persona now. Like, people are
I know they
primed for a
do,
new
but
Persona.
it was like a kind of, from what I remember, it was like a Titanfall 2 situation where they released it between two other big games. You know, it didn't really feel like a big priority for Sega in terms of marketing and all that. The other surprise is Team Sonic Racing up at 3.5 million, which that game
is also not
stinks.
the version of a game you would want to play. There are better Sonic racing games, like Sonic Ore. Sonic Frontiers has sold 4.5 million. Total War Warhammer 2 has sold 2.3 million. Shin Megami Tensei 5, including Vengeance,
That's another surprise.
has sold 2.1 million, which is better than I was expecting in a lot of ways.
I mean, obviously it had the however many years before that, and Nintendo fans will buy fucking anything, but like that doing significantly better than, you know, both of the Yakuzas. Well, not Yakuza Like a Dragon, but that's been out longer. But that doing better than Infinite Wealth, that doing better than.
I mean, Infinite Wealth hasn't been out as long, and it's only had one release, is kind of the comparison point, so it makes sense that would sell about half as much. Yakuza Like a Dragon has sold 2.8 million. Persona 5 Royal, including remastered version, which... Oh, they mean like the PS5 version. Okay, yeah. So this is just Persona 5 Royal, not Persona 5 base. Has sold 7.2 million, which is a lot for a turn-based RPG. Team Sonic Racing...
Especially a re-release.
Yeah. Team Sonic Racing was 3.5, and Total War 3 Kingdoms was 3.2. The long and short of this is like, hey, Sega games selling pretty well at the moment. They seem to be in a pretty consistent spot where most of their big franchises are hitting pretty well.
So, I guess it's for the re-release part of that Persona thing. If you look at it, it's like 1.8 million came the year that they did the Switch port.
Yeah.
As well, and that was more than it sold. I think just combined the 3 years before, it's like just above that.
I mean, as much shit as you can give them for not making these things day and day, they have paced them out really cleverly, and it has worked out in their favor of basically being able to like re-release that game multiple times to multiple new audiences and managing to reach new people each time. Like, it feels like that's working for them at the moment. So I think we're going to keep on seeing that, is them being like, oh, Persona 6 is like a PlayStation launch title, and then it's going to come to Switch 2 and everything else later.
God, I hope not.
I bet they do it. I really do.
I think they stagger the Switch. I think it's going to be like a GTA situation, like same as they're doing with Metaphor here and Persona 3 Reload. They stagger the Switch one, because that's going to be like the GTA and PC, that's the big one. So you stagger that and people double dip. I think they're going to do the exact same thing with Switch 2.
That's what I think they'll do, is they'll be like...
I think Xbox will get them day and date from now on.
Probably, because, you know, they do those Game Pass deals, and I bet they like those deals. Because I doubt they would be selling as much on Xbox anyway, so that deal works out for them. Also, in Sega news, Persona 4 sounds like it is still a long ways away. This comes from Darren Bonfuse at GameSpot. Sega fans are in for a long wait, as the two biggest and recently announced games from the publisher won't be out for a long time. Persona 4 Revival from Atlas and RGG's Stranger Than Heaven received a brand new trailers earlier this month at Keely's show and Xbox's show, right? But those two games are still far away from release. Both these games are planned to launch either during or after Sega's 2027 fiscal year, which begins April 1st, 2026. This sounds like a long way out when you say fiscal 2027, but like when you think about it, April 2026 is kind of like the beginning of 2026. Like, it's not massively far out. I can see Persona 4 Remake being an April-May game, especially considering Persona 3 was kind of early in the year when it came out.
If those stupid fucks do it again, where it's like a dragon 1 week and then Persona literal next week, I'm going to knock them out.
Just don't do that
ruined me
again.
Last year,
Yeah.
Persona 4 doesn't surprise me, because with that trailer, I don't know why they had actual footage. The footage did not look great. They should have just had a conceptual trailer.
Yeah.
Why?
It's like, hey, Persona 4 Remake in development.
Also, that'll be longer between Persona 3. I think I said this last time, but that'll be longer between Persona 3 and Persona 4 releasing originally than it is between the remakes releasing.
Yep. That's
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that's just game development now, you know?
Yep.
It's weird. I doubt they have just started on that thing. Surely they've been working on this for years, because it's fucking Persona
I mean,
4,
if they're gonna give one of these remakes the most attention, it's going to be 4. Because 4 has the loudest
the best.
the loudest of the fan bases in a lot of ways, because it was the one where things really started to break out, and it like laid the foundation of what was to come with Persona 5 in a lot of ways. So I can totally see them being like, this is the one we put a load of work into. So I can see why this is taking longer. Stranger Than Heaven, I do think is a ways out. I think that's like end of fiscal 2027, which would be, you know, sometime
they'll
early.
release like 10 more Yakuza games in the time between that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think that's the big question. Like, do we get more Yakuza before that? Which I think probably.
Yeah, I
don't
bet
think we get a mainline, but we definitely get like a
spin-off or something.
I bet we do that. That team works on multiple projects at a time. You know, they have multiple internal teams.
They're doing
Virtua Fighter.
Virtua Fighter as well. So maybe not. Maybe we get another remake. Maybe we get
Yakuza 3 finally.
They have talked about wanting to do Yakuza Kiwami 3.
Yeah.
What's the
which
the one
honestly
that's
I think
not
that's the game that needs it. Like, there are some people who are out there that are like, oh, Yakuza 3 doesn't need it. You go back to Yakuza
it does.
3.
It
fucking
does.
needs it. It really does. That is a PS3 game that feels like a PS2 game in all the worst ways. Like the stuff that they
played
kept
that
from the PS2.
recently, and it was not as bad as everyone told me it was.
Oh yeah, like it's still like the worst Yakuza games are still good games, but like there are parts of that
I
game
really like Ricky.
that are fucking slow as shit. And not just like
The combat does not feel great in that game either.
And like it's not even just like the stuff that's meant to feel slow, like the stuff in Okinawa where you're with the kids, but like the stuff where you are trying to get from one scene to another just feels like it takes for fucking ever. Like, it feels like you have to go through 5 menus for everything, and it's like, oh, this game just needs a UI overhaul to be modernized. Last one that we'll hit here very, very quickly, just because I want to talk about it, is that apparently Resident Evil Requiem has hit 1 million wishlists. This is from Evan Campbell at GameSpot. Basically, that game, you can only wishlist it on the PlayStation Store and Steam at the moment, are the only storefronts where you can wishlist it, and it's already at 1 million wishlists after being announced 2 weeks ago, or after getting store pages like 2 weeks ago. And no one usually uses the wishlist feature on PlayStation, so most of those are coming from PC. People are real fucking ready for a new Resident Evil. Like, that game's gonna sell like hotcakes. That's wild.
Resident Evil fans act like they have not eaten in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Even though they've eaten much better than almost anyone else.
It's so funny. Yeah, I love
it has been a yearly franchise since like 2005 15 or so.
Not just yearly, like yearly, very good games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is great when you go into like the Resident Evil subreddit and they're like, I can't believe Capcom ignores us so much. They haven't given us our Outbreak 2 remaster yet. And
They
it's
just
like,
want
oh
Code
guys.
Veronica.
I'm in the Capcom subreddit, and those fuckers post, you know, that like thing where it's like someone getting fed, and then there's like the person strapped to the bottom of the ocean,
Yeah.
and they're doing that where they're like, Okami is getting too much right now. Resident Evil is being suffocated. Like Onimusha is being treated so like, and then Mega Man fans are like, actually, our games like.
You
You had Mega Man 8 recently, and you're talking about Onimusha fans, and you're talking Mega Man 8, Mega Man
11.
11, sorry. You had that recently, and you're talking about Onimusha fans. You're talking about like
Yeah,
these
it's
like the Okami people.
it's
Like,
very
come on,
funny.
the fuck.
I think that like they just are like, what if we got my favorite one remade though? You know? And that's
That's what it is.
Everyone's favorite one's been remade. No one likes Code Veronica. No one likes fucking Steve. Steve, is that him? Steve Burnside,
Yeah.
is that his
Yeah.
name with the
Yep.
proper and his two guns?
um Code Veronica is one where it makes sense for a remake because out of all of those older Resident Evil games, it could probably do with it, you know, in a lot of ways.
They should remake
5. You just love
The-
5
Punch
so
that boulder,
much.
man. Let's
Yeah.
punch that boulder again.
you know what? If they
100%.
remade
Bring back
5,
Shiva.
but turned it more into like a fucking stupid like turned it into Resident Evil 6 where it's just like a stupid action game, I'd fuck with 5. Like make it just Lost Planet, you know. I feel like I don't know if we talked about it last time, but we should probably how we all feeling about Resident Evil 9 just conceptually.
I don't know, cautiously optimistic because like
That's where
the
I'm at.
story of Ethan Winters is pretty much done now, right? So
Yeah.
we're looking into something a little bit different and new. People speculating that we're going to see Leon again, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what direction they're going to take it. I always think Resident Evil comes in threes, like in terms of like just conceptually, it's always they seem kind of contained to like their threes, but 9 might. I don't really know where 9's going to go.
Yeah. I think the split between like first and third person playable has me a little worried because I would almost rather them like I worry about how that split could affect the direction
Yeah.
of the game.
There's part of me that's like, okay, what if instead of that you just had 2 playable characters and one of them
Yeah,
was
and
the
one
first...
was first,
yeah.
one was third.
That's why I was
Yeah.
like that would have been that feels like a good like have Leon be third person and have
Exactly. Yeah.
Ashcroft.
Grace, is that her name?
Grace Ashcroft, yeah.
Also, I don't know if this is going to be somewhat controversial. I don't want Leon back. We've had Leon like 10 times. Where's Claire?
I want Jill.
True. I
Where's
want Jill.
Yeah,
I want Jill
exactly.
back.
Jill has not done a fucking thing in
Jill is in all those
How many years?
movies.
since
That
Resident
everyone
She
Evil.
loves.
didn't do almost anything in that movie either.
Jill has not done anything since Resident Evil 3 because what the fuck was that in Resident Evil 5? That doesn't count. You know? Like, where is she?
Oh, right,
She
that was...
she was,
oh, God, Resident Evil 5.
she was the poster girl.
Oh.
That's the version that's in fucking Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as well. It's terrible.
That's-
It reminds me every time. But then you play that Resident Evil 3 remake, and I know people don't like it that much, but Jill is so fucking good. And
Yeah.
like
And I like that Resident
Jill.
Evil 3 remake if you didn't
I
pay
do too.
$60 for
I
it.
really like it.
You know?
as well.
I was not a fan. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was like one of my favorite Resident Evils like ever. And that remake was just so different. Like Nemesis is just so scripted. It's just it felt
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It took away the bleakness of that game and then it just kind of made it into action schlock, which was I don't know. I just felt a bit cheated from it. Maybe
Oh,
if it
yeah,
was cheaper, I wouldn't care, but yeah.
I can see that being a very bad game for anyone who actually liked Resident Evil 3, but as someone who does not really care much for those original games because I am too stupid to play them. That was like Action Slot was my like, okay, here we go. This is what I want. My Resident Evil 6ification of Resident Evil 3.
Yeah, so that's
Quite
Resident Evil. I'm looking forward to it. And they also have Onimusha next year. They're gonna have like a
and
pretty
Pragmata.
yeah. They
Pragmata, yeah.
have a busy year next year.
And Angry.
And theoretically a Monster Hunter expansion.
I hope they delay Pragmata again. Like that would
and
be
Ace
so funny.
Attorney 7.
You're never getting into
Alright,
Ace Attorney.
fellas.
Sorry.
Ace Attorney Mega Man X10. XX. What Mega Man X are we on?
I don't think Capcom
Mega-
knows how to like make a new Mega Man game anymore.
Mega
They're
Man
like,
Legends
we
3.
can only remake
It's
these.
so easy. It's so easy to make a new Mega Man game. You just put the guy, you make him shoot, and then you give him something funny to do when you've killed a boss. They're just honestly do the Sonic thing. Let fans make it. I don't care. Like I'm.
Or just license Yacht Club to make it.
Yeah, but
Be
they're
down
too
for
busy making Castlevania.
Mina.
Yeah.
Castlevania Zelda. But next year, this year I think we're gonna have nothing else from Capcom because like last year was fairly quiet by their standards. When you look at, it was pretty much just Dragon's Dogma in terms of their like big stuff, and then you had like little bits like Kinitsugami and Dead Rising remake. I think this year we're probably gonna have the same thing where it's just gonna be like little bits here and there, but then next year they're gonna go fucking nuts apparently. But it's weird that Onimusha doesn't have a date, considering we've seen so much of it.
There is a Capcom Presents in like 3 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna
so
say
that
we'll
might
probably
change.
we'll probably get an Onimusha
Onimusha's
date before this
not in that, I don't
episode
think.
goes out.
I think it's just Pragmata, Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Monster Hunter, which all the Monster Hunter stuff leaked anyway. So I think it's just those 4. Hopefully they announce a Dragon's Dogma 2 expansion. Please,
That's
Capcom.
good luck, Scott. Good luck.
Announced Devil May Cry 6.
Oh,
Devil May Cry 5 sold 10 million copies.
I didn't
That's
include
the-
it in the news, but boy, I didn't think I could be bummed about any Duke Nukem news. Like, I care about that
Oh,
character
yeah.
so little. And then seeing that dude bought it, I was like, oh man, this is the worst fucking outcome. How did we go from Randy Pitchford seeming like the better owner of the Duke Nukem IP? Like, how did we wind up here?
I tell you what, see if he just does the exact same thing he did with Devil May Cry and make it like an Iraq War thing, and it's just Duke Nukem. That'd be the funniest fucking TV show on the planet. I am actually quite bummed about this, and we're gonna go full circle here, because you know what the last Duke Nukem project was? It was a movie being made with John Cena and the starring role, and that would have been perfect. That would have been
Yeah.
so good. And then you know what? For all this, that Devil May Cry show was rough. That American Idiot scene was so on the nose that I thought, oh my god, this is kind of amazing. I don't know if anyone's watched the whole show.
No, I couldn't.
They nuke the fuck out, like the Iraq War hell. They send fighter jets into hell to destroy all the demons while American Idiot plays.
Oh, wow.
It is so on the fucking nose, like terrible, that I found it so funny. Like
that
it is nuts. Like it's
Anyway, that guy's out there, like, starting beef with Apogee, as if that makes him look cool, which is really funny, because also, who cares if Apogee doesn't like you? They're Apogee. They barely exist anymore. It's fine.
give that guy the postal rights.
Oh, Christ.
Just make some real good shit.
Yeah, right, we're gonna get to some quick patron questions. All of them, I think, are based around Death Stranding 2. We'll make these quick hits. First one here. Is there a line of dialogue just as god-awful as the Princess Beach line from the first game? Is there anything in Death Stranding 2 that stuck out to you like that?
Don't think so. Well,
The only thing that sticks out to me, it's not quite that bad, but there's a moment where you can read Moby Dick in your room, and he
That's
talks
right, yeah.
about how, like, Captain Ahab made this, like, diverse crew of people from all these different countries, and Dahlman all of a sudden is like, that reminds me of Kojima Productions. It's like,
I was going to bring up that thing back where you read Moby Dick, and there are multiple moments where a character says a phantom pain, and it's like probably
Yes!
like Leonardo DiCaprio
Yeah.
pointing at the screen.
or there's a line near the end too where a character says, "Kept you waiting, huh?" And you're like,
oh yeah,
okay,
no,
there we go.
I marked out for that. I don't care. I was like, yeah.
I wonder
fucking
which
do it.
character it is.
Isn't the one you think it is?
It actually isn't.
That's funny. Ask Scott why he's such a Kojima fanboy, / is Kojima actually good, or is everyone just trying to prank me? Scott, I feel like you can answer both of these.
Yeah, this is what I was getting into earlier. for as much shit as Kojima gets as being like this movie guy and he loves to make his games into movies, no one gives a fuck about gameplay more than Kojima when it comes to this type of shit. Like, what do you mean 20 years ago when like Metal Gear Solid 2, he was like, I really want the ice cubes to melt realistically on the play, you know? Just weird shit like that that so much of like AAA stuff doesn't really think about. And that's why these games are so good, because they actually take advantage of the medium while also having these kind of things that people love so much about your big Sony first party things. Like they have all the production value, they have all the acting and the writing and all that shit, but it doesn't forget that it's a game, and that always is something that I think he does better than anyone else. Is he fucking knows how to take the medium and fuck about with it. Like even his stupid ideas that you hear about, like he wanted the game that broke its like destroyed itself in the disk drive when you died, where he wanted Snatcher, like the CD for Snatcher, to make your room smell like blood whenever you went into like a crime scene, shit like that. Like that is why. Because who's thinking of that shit? Who's not fucking Joseph Fares? He's saying fuck the Oscars and making some fun mini games, you know? Like not what's his name? The guy, the Neil Druckmann, he's not. He's just thinking of ways to make you fucking miserable, you know?
I feel like the only
That's
person
like
who
James
thinks
the goat.
about weird shit like that quite as much and gets away. Does it? Peter Molyneux is kind of like the Western version of him in a lot of ways. Not as beloved, because he
I
hasn't managed to deliver on so many things.
yeah.
But there's still a level of like, oh, you're trying
I
things, and
You're
I
trying,
like
yeah.
Pierre
in
Molyneux,
his
you
case,
know?
I think it's just that more of those things haven't worked. You know?
Yeah.
Pierre
Mhm.
Molyneux is like Kojima and Todd Howard mixed together, where like
Yeah.
he has the overpromising of Todd Howard and then the kind of thoughtful playfulness of Kojima. And I have a lot of love for Peter Molyneux in ways because it is like stupid shit. Like he seems like he genuinely did want Fable to have like the you go to this town and piss on this bush and there'll be a sign up like no pissing on the bush, you know, stuff like that. Like I do have a lot of. He's a somewhat charming man in ways.
He's a talker. Like I've seen people talk to him and come
Whereas
away and just be like, yeah, that guy's a real
Whereas Todd
affable.
Howard will be like, "This is gonna blow your mind. This is gonna fucking blow up RPGs, and it's just another fucking mid RPG that plays on the same engine as they have since like 2007." You know?
Um, next question. I heard Fontaine's DC is on the soundtrack for DS2, which is cool. So, what's your favorite track from the game? Game is out now, so you can actually talk about the soundtrack now. That was like the thing they were being super uh, strict about with those previews. Was like, don't talk about who's on the soundtrack. I haven't heard much of it. I've mainly heard the Woodkid stuff in the first 5 hours.
Mm.
And there's a pretty good needle drop when you first get home and you're hanging out with your kid.
Yeah.
That's a fun scene. What other bits of music? I'm excited to get to the Cowlin Polachek stuff. The one who did like the main theme for the game.
No, I feel like you.
It
should
plays
have got
quite
this.
early-ish on, but maybe
Yeah, I
you're
thought
not.
that was
You're
before you
just.
got to Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Mhm.
haven't actually got to Australia yet. I'm leaving
Oh, right,
for Australia. They're like, go
Ah.
out, go into the plate gate.
Okay, that may be.
Yeah, maybe that's where it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, a lot of the Woodkids tracks on it are really good. There's one that plays near
Yeah.
the end that I really like. That's like I think it's called like To the Wilder or something. I think that one was really good.
Yeah, that's the main theme. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one they put in
that
the trailer.
that one's
And
sick.
Yeah.
that's
There's some
the
good-
mission where you go like basically all across the map, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's some good musical stuff that happens in the final boss fight too. Is all I'll say.
That glitched on me, and I had no music during that, and I had to restart.
That's a shame.
I don't know
Are
if
there any
Fontaine's DC
surprises?
is on the soundtrack.
I think they are. I think they've talked about them.
I don't think I noticed it. I really liked. So Woodkid's kind of the new low roar in terms of how much he gets played in the game. I don't think it's quite as not effective, but like low roar has always been kind of haunting in a way. Like the way they do their music, it's very
And Low
ethereal,
Roar shows up on this soundtrack again. They are there.
Yes, whenever low roar played, I was like, there's a bit of me that was like, oh. Like it hit me in ways. But I really liked, and I believe his name is Magnolian, Mangolian.
Yes, I think I saw that.
Magnolia.
I will.
Yeah.
I thought his songs kind of showed up fairly often as well, and I thought those were all very pretty, and they were all very like upbeat in a way that didn't exactly fit the scene, but I thought it was really
Yeah.
they were always very nice scenes. Sorry, good.
I will say you're not going to like recognize Woodkid's songs as easily because he composed specifically for the game. So most of his songs you don't get the like, oh, this is a low roar song and it pops up on your screen. So you're not going to realize what's his most of the time.
They only reused like 2 or 3 tracks. Even in the Church's song didn't play until the credits of the last game, but one of the songs, Asylums to the Feeling, when that came back, I was like, oh shit, this is a good, because it came at a point in a game where you're thinking about the first game a lot.
Yeah.
And I believe that was one of the trailer songs. And also that needle drop and they use in that scene when you get back to the house is quite important. And I mean, that's the most recognizable song in the game, so I'll not give it away because it's early on enough. But that comes back in a few ways, and I always really liked when it showed up because the way it interacted with the story they were trying to tell and the characters.
And it's also so different from anything else on the soundtrack.
Yeah. I will say, and this is probably a good point to bring this up, you get a music player in this. Did any of you use the music player when you were out delivering?
Really, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't either. I missed, because in the first one you got to play it in your room, and I used to do that a lot in the first one, but you couldn't really do it in this one. And I never had it out with me. I was like focusing on the ambience, I suppose.
Yeah, I liked the option. I was like, oh, cool, because in the first game I was like, oh, it'd be nice if you had a music player out in the wild. But then when I had it, I was like, I don't want to do that because when you play a song and another song kicks up, it does do like a static thing and it interrupts it with the song they want you to hear. But yeah, I found that quite funny that after wanting a music player, I never really wanted to use it. Also, there's a song you can play for Dollman. It talks about a song, and if you play it in the room and you talk to him, you get something. Did any of you see that?
No.
Okay, there's a specific song. I'll need to remember the name of it. But there's a song in that game.
Oh, yes, I know this. Yeah.
And if you speak to him when that song plays, it's well worth it. But yes, I'll let you go to the next.
Second last Death Stranding question here. Do you feel like Death Stranding 2 has worthwhile things to say, or to put it another way, does it have anything to say of subsistence? The Patreon supporter did want to follow up in the Discord, saying that was an intentional pun. Does this?
I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2 was called Substance. You could have just used the joke still works.
It does. Yeah, but I think it's funnier that it's more pained.
I will let you two take on this because I feel like I have yapped a lot.
Yeah, I think it does have. I mean, the whole theme is grief, right? And it tackles it in a very we discussed it. It tackles it in a very bold, daring way, and it does carry that theme very well throughout the majority of it, I think. And it comes back around with other characters and intermixes that how it relates to Sam's journey and a lot of these revelations that he perhaps discovers following the first game. I think it is. Yeah, I don't think it's that there for the sake of it. I think it is making a poignant. I don't know. It's saying something. Yeah. Maybe I can't articulate it right now because it's like 10 to 8. But there's something there.
Final question, and we actually kind of touched on this a little bit. How does Death Stranding 2 sit in comparison to Kojima's other games? Does it share any of MGS2's DNA? From the sounds of it, it shares shockingly little of MGS2, the spirit of that game. I'm curious, did you find any overlap with any of his previous games other than just Death Stranding?
I mean, there's
there is a character who is just Solid Snake, yeah.
Yeah.
Even then, he's not really at all.
He looks like him, but that's kind of where it ends.
There's the element of nature and how you interact with nature that comes from Metal Gear Solid 3, but that's kind of been prevalent since Metal Gear Solid 3. There was a lot of that in 5. There was a lot of that. Not so much in Peace Walker, but that was Monster Hunter, wasn't it? So, but yeah, other than that, I wouldn't really say it's perhaps his least subversive, and I guess it's also subversive. I mean, we've kind of gone over that. It's subversive in the sense that
it's not
game is shockingly similar to that first game, you know.
Yeah, I guess the biggest comparisons I'd say are on kind of more of a surface level, where a lot of the new enemies and bosses feel Metal Gear-esque in terms of visual design. In terms of like narrative theme and things like that, like you said, I don't feel like there's a lot of crossover.
He's definitely got more comfortable with acknowledging Metal Gear in this one.
Yeah. He's like, okay, they won't sue me. Scott, this last one is for you. Can you confirm or deny King K. Rool is in Bonanza? He likes to dress up. Could he be Void Kong in disguise? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark.
I keep that thing on me at all times.
I'm not surprised.
I funnily enough, have also written this exact story that is going up tomorrow, I believe.
Oh, I thought you were just going to be like, it's my fanfic.
It almost is like the like the scene in Always Sunny where he's got all this stuff on the board and he's like rambling. It's pretty much that. Actually, as that. So the piece, I will basically refrain some of the piece to you. I think this is the perfect time to bring him back because the whole game seems like a big kind of celebration of Donkey Kong going back to the
arcade game.
The two eras have kind of been separate
a
lot of the time. This feels like the big Donkey Kong moment.
Scott,
I think
big question.
He is a
big question. Do we see Stanley the Bugman?
No, he's dead. He died in a bugging accident.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Killed by wild bees.
Oh no, Stanley.
I think having King K. Rool in there would be a very nice thing to have. I do not actually kind of buy into a lot of the conspiracy theories like that. As Void Kong in disguise, that is an actual theory people have. That this little marmoset is actually this big chunky crocodile.
Do you think Mario shows up?
No, I don't think they do that. I think the most we get is if they do a reveal of like, oh, Pauline is actually Pauline's daughter or something like that.
An Easter egg where you see like Mario's hat or something. I could see that.
That's the closest we get to it. I think the way Nintendo is and how they are so like anal about everything, I reckon they do not let that happen. I want to say I also mentioned this before. There's an interview with Miyamoto where he's like, I see Nintendo's characters as actors, which kind of talks like we're not going to go into the lore stuff, but that kind of explains that lore stuff. Like, who gives a fuck what the lore is? Like, I like the lore. I don't care about the timeline. I don't care that I've got a young Pauline and whatever. But then he's like, oh yeah, I don't really think anyone should cross over except for Pikmin because he likes them the best, I guess.
Yeah. Pikmin is like his clear favorite child, and I kind of love that. Like, he doesn't even make any bones about it.
The way Miyamoto is and the way some of the attitudes that Nintendo are, I don't think they do anything close to portraying Mario as a villain because I think.
Oh yeah, that's
they're very.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You gotta protect that brand.
Stringent about it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't even think they like joke about that kind of thing, you know. I can see, you know, there will be a costume that is like
punished
the
Mario
overalls or something like that, you know. But I don't really see. It'd be funny, but I don't, it's like me wanting the end of Metal Gear Solid 5 to be a remake of Metal Gear 1. You know, it's
now that I say it, that's what if they had the balls, that's what they'd do. They'd do punished Mario and have the reveal be that he's
David
actually
Cater voice Mario.
Yeah, that he's actually the villain. Oh, that would be so good. That's never gonna happen. That's almost the podcast. That's almost we have time
just
for.
Braid. You've just described Braid.
Oh fuck no, Braid. Fuck. Before we wrap up, we have some shout outs to give to our Rewinder store clerks. These are people who subscribe at the gold tier. This week they are Owen Waters, Chris Haney, Caladrius. I still can't get that name right. Caladrius, you can DM me and tell me how to actually pronounce your name. Branford Hubbard, Daniel Noak, and everyone else that has supported us on Patreon. That's a podcast. Thank you all so much for joining me. Before we leave, if you folks want to promote yourself and talk about where people can find you, let the folks know. Hayes, starting with you.
Yeah, primarily find me on inverse.com. That's where I do most of my work, but I freelance some other places as well. So I'm on Blue Sky as @Soulfleet.
Great. And Alex?
Yeah, I'll say for the most part, you can just find me usually on like Twitter/X as LP Lexi, or Instagram, just as my name. I think I can't remember what it is, but that's probably the best place to find me for now.
Scott, where are you fucking about at the moment?
Everywhere. No, I'm still on Games Radar. They haven't figured out how to sack me yet. Hoping that will continue into
They're
the good
working
summer.
on it. Don't worry, top men.
This was meant to be my last week, is what I will say. So I'm hopefully clinging on a little bit more, but otherwise I am just kind of about. I'm doing freelancey stuff
Yeah.
at the likes of Tech Radar, and I'm also going to return to this website that we're on because now I have stopped playing Death Stranding 2 and that stopped taking over my life, and I've caught up on the Switch too. I will now have words to say on the website that I should be running.
And I should say, speaking of the website, we're going to be doing a community Mario Kart live stream tomorrow as of recording, but today as of this going live. We're
only in game chat.
We are going to be testing out game chat. That is going to be happening, and it's going to be a fucking nightmare. So yeah, come join us over on twitch.tv/rewindermedia. The VOD will also go up on YouTube. And remember that you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rewinder. You can support us directly through the website if you don't want to go through Patreon's backend, and that's rewinder.co.uk. This week we had a bunch of pieces go up. I wrote about Ridge Racer. They should bring back fucking Ridge Racer. And yeah, you should go check out the website. Follow us on Blue Sky at rewinder.co.uk there as well. And that's all the plugs, I think. Join us again in 2 weeks' time. We may or may not have more guests on. Thank you, Scott. And until next time, take care of yourself and goodbye.